Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Justine Mader. Hey, Justine, how are you?
I'm amazing, Cesar. Thanks for having me on today. I'm so excited.
Yes, no, definitely. I'm excited to have you here and definitely just tap into a lot of good stuff, a lot of great content, just having the listeners to get to know you a little bit more and just bring some really good, a lot of great value, because I know you have a lot of that. And we definitely, following you and seeing you on Facebook and all that stuff, you're always bringing so much value. So definitely excited to have you here. Before we get started though, let me give the listeners a little bit of your background. So Justine, she's a high performance coach that empowers clients through mindset, priorities, and accountability. The transformation of their life and business comes from within, and their definition of success becomes their reality. Recently, she became the co-host for the virtually Limitless podcast and the co-author of the Limitless Expansion Secrets. Les. Awesome. Amazing. So let's get started. Like, who's Justine? Tell me more about you. Where were you born? Like, what is your background, upbringing?
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for that intro, Cesar. You're so good with this show. And I'm just so honored to be on here with all of you because we're all overcoming stuff. And so I'm overcoming life from Minnesota. That's where I was born and raised. And so I am here with my husband and I have a young son. We are going to be having our second later on in 2021.
Congrats.
So thank you. Thank you. So life is busy, right? So how do I overcome, or how do I go through life based on what my previous history has been? I came from a large family. I was homeschooled. I was in a small town. I don't have anything that, what would you say, gave me the boost in the world.
Yeah, right.
So I was immediately attracted to some great leaders in the industry in marketing, business, and all of that. And one of them is Dean Graziosi. He has kind of patented the underdog mindset in his material. And so I would say, for people that don't know me, I have really embraced that mindset in the sense that just because I wasn't given it doesn't mean I can't achieve it. And so many of us look at it the opposite way, where it's like, oh, if I wasn't given it, I wasn't meant to have it. Cesar, I don't believe that's true. And I know you're on board with that because you're just killing everything in your life and business too. So yeah, for people that, don't know me, I went to college. I'm not the standard entrepreneur that flunked out of high school. I did amazing in school. I fell into the entrepreneurship journey actually when I had my firstborn son. We decided that raising our family according to our priorities was most important. And so that had me quitting my full-time job the day before he was born. So that was crazy, but that mindset of choosing how we wanted to live our lives in the moment was really, really important. And I think that when people ask me as a coach, how does that relate to what I'm doing now? Because we're all talking, Cesar, about hustle, put in the work, put in the drive, and it'll pay off later. I do encourage that, but I don't encourage it at the result of losing yourself. Because when you achieve, the pinnacle of the mountain and you're no longer there, you're no longer happy, you're no longer fulfilled, then what was it all for? And so for my husband and I, that was family. That was family. So God, family, and then business, like that career, anything like that, that comes after. And so keeping those priorities in line set me free. And that's a huge thing that I can relate to my clients as well. So you'll find me in Minnesota hanging out with the family, doing all the things, but also expanding in the business space, investing in myself. I have coaches. I have people that are building me up. I'm learning from amazing people, hanging out with guys like Cesar. Guys, this is how we do it. And so just being raw and real, that's who I am, you guys.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And there's a lot of great things you talked about that I definitely want to tap into. Like one of the things you talked about is really investing on yourself, right? And I want to know more about that. Before that, though, I think many people might be can relate to this. Is that how did I take that leap? How did I go from a full-time job to maybe following my dream of whatever that might be, entrepreneurship, or even maybe I want to go out and travel for about 2-3 months, whatever the case may be. And that can be very scary. I know for me, when I left my full-time job, that was very scary to leave that comfort of having that secure paycheck and then now stepping into a space where it is unknown. How was that for you? Like, what was going through your mind to say, you know what? Yeah, this is the priority that I want to have. But how did you overcome that, right?
Oh my gosh. So yes, that's a huge question. And I think it relates so closely to everyone in 2020 right now. Everything that we thought was consistent has changed. There's a whole new normal being established. So when I was in that space, Cesar, the biggest thing I knew was that I had to control me, because that was the only thing I could control. I did fall into depression. I did fall into a couple of dark spaces that I'm not proud of, but I went through it and I grew through it. So the biggest thing that I think for people to keep in mind as you're overcoming something is not to be ashamed about it, but to realize that it's helping you become the best version of yourself. So for me, I knew that what my priority was, right? So identify what your priority is and then take actions to do it. So I quit my job, which was prior dental. I was a dental assistant, loved it. Had an amazing experience there. So I didn't leave because I didn't like the teeth industry. People were like, oh, I could never, no, I loved it. And no, so that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so I identified what I was after. I took actions to make it possible. And then I actually had to start living it, right? So I went from full-time work to a full-time stay-at-home mom now with my firstborn child. I'd never been a mother. Motherhood, even fatherhood it's a completely whole new world that's worth a whole nother show.
Yeah, and that changes your dynamics for sure.
It does, but because of that, and because I knew that that's what I wanted, it didn't matter what was going to happen. Like, it didn't matter that it didn't matter that I was in a funk. I was kind of stuck. I knew I was going to have to get out of it because this little angel, this little gift was depending on me. And little did I know, but a couple of months after my son was born, my husband actually got relocated for work as well. So I went from being a full-time work to stay-at-home mom to now almost single parent, not because I didn't have a supportive spouse, but work took him elsewhere for the entire week. So it was one of those things that it really reminded me of how little I actually control in this world. Wow. And it made me come back, and I'm a person of faith, for those of you that don't know, came back to realize that, you know what, this time is a gift and God is giving me everything I need to do within myself. I don't need outside sources to make this happen. I decide if I can make this happen. And I did. When I made that shift, it was a pivotal moment, Cesar, when I realized that I wanted to be happy. Me, like from me, not because somebody else gave me a gift or, I felt appreciated. I wanted to be happy for me. And so I had to think about what experiences made me happy. And it took me back to a dental experience that I had when I was volunteering. I was serving people that couldn't afford dental work, and I was using my license, which was amazing, to bless all these other people. And I was like, I was happy when I was serving, when I was giving. And so I turned to the online space. I was like, if I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm honoring my priorities. What can I do from where I'm at to serve and bless others? And that's when stuff really started changing for me, Cesar. That was the moment.
Wow. I love that. And there's 3 things that you mentioned that I want to reemphasize. Number 1, if anybody's stuck with anything, it doesn't matter what you're going through life, as you mentioned, you were going through something and you grew out of that. So that's the message, that
yes.
Don't just stay down. Like, you got to be able to not just, go through it. You got to grow through it. Right. And so
he's preaching. You better be listening. Yeah. Cesar's got this.
Yeah, that's awesome. The other one too is you cannot, you said it. Yeah, there's so many things, right? We talk, even right now, if we think about right now, politics, COVID, whatever
Yes.
is going on, right? There's
So
certain
much.
things, or a lot of things actually, that we cannot control.
Mm-mm.
The one thing we could control though is what's happening in our space, immediate space, right? And so that's what
Absolutely.
you were talking about too, is that, yeah, your husband had to go away for about a week or so. You're being a new mom. You had to go through all these things that perhaps you couldn't control. Yet you have to
Yep.
step back and say, what can I control from where I'm at right now? The things that I can do.
Absolutely.
And then the other one, which I think is huge, is the fact that you're serving and you're giving, right? When you come from a place of serving, when you come from a place of giving, there's
Yes.
really a lot of within that. There's so much things to be grateful for that is gonna come back
Absolutely.
to you in many different ways. And I think that as an entrepreneur or just a regular person, if or civilian, you got to look at the things from those three aspects. How am I growing through this experience or challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
going through that. So no, that's amazing. Now, one thing that I see here in my notes, and I want to know about that, is you were in pretty much facing death recently with 109.3 fever due to a kidney
Yes.
infection. Tell me about that experience.
So it was actually this year. So 2020 has had a lot.
Yeah,
I did not get COVID. I have not been
yeah,
spared of that, calamity so far, crossing my fingers, right?
yeah.
I'm doing all the safe things, but I actually, so it was February and I was struck with a fever. I had no other symptoms and I was like, whatever, no big deal. I'll just rest. Really came out of nowhere. And I ended up having a fever for a few days and it consistently climbed. So of course went to the hospital to
Mm-hmm.
seek care and all of my x-rays came back good. All my tests were good and they were testing other things and my fever climaxed to 109.3 and they're like, oh my gosh, what the heck happened? It was a response to some of the medication they gave me in between time trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't find anything. So then they were able to link it back to my kidneys and thank God I'm still here. But I remember I was laying in the hospital bed. My husband was with me. Nurse came in. I mean, they came in a million times. I was losing track of how many times they came through. But she took my temperature and she was like, I got to take it again.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't black out. I didn't have any seizures, but I just remember being like, that's wrong. Why is she taking it again? I looked at my husband. I was like, huh? And he's like, got up, he's like, what's going on? And she's like, well, it might be broken, and she kind of slams it on her hand. I was like, hospitals don't have broken thermometers.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So anyways, I was just like, okay. And so she took it again. And then she pushed a button and she got other nurses in there. And I was like, what the heck is going on? She didn't really tell me. And then later on, they told me that my fever had climaxed 109.3. They changed my medications and they realized that I had a severe kidney infection. And that's what had caused my fever. And I was like, that number is too high. That number is too high. It's going down. It's got to go down. And I just remember saying to myself in the bed, I was so exhausted and dehydrated due to the heat. I didn't really talk a whole lot, but I was just like, it's got to go down. It's got to go down. It's got to go down. I was calm, but I had people asking me like, oh, did you realize you could have died? And I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about the numbers coming down. Like how far can, each decimal point, how many more can I get down during the day? And then the fever broke the next day. And I was so grateful, but I couldn't walk, Cesar. I was so weak. I couldn't walk. And they said I couldn't go home until I could walk. I hadn't seen my son for 7 days. I'd never been gone from my son that long. And so it was one of those moments of, I'm failing as a mom, I'm trying to get better. So I was just like, I am going to walk if it's the last thing I do. So the thing that I really am grateful for was I was able to keep the presence of mindset to support me through it. I'm not saying I was perfect. I was definitely filled with fear. I was praying my heart out, but at the same time, I didn't panic. I didn't give up. And I was like, I'm going to walk, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to do this. And by the grace of God, I'm here. I shouldn't be here. My brain should be fried. I should be gone.
Yeah.
And So the message that I want to share with people is that if this happened to me, a small Minnesota mama that is, just striving to become the best version of herself in life and business, this happened to me, how much more important is your message? How much more important is it for you to live each day without regret? Yeah. I was like, I'm not done, Lord. I'm not done. I didn't finish yet. Yeah. You got to let me work. I'm not done here. And so that changed my whole perspective on how I was executing business, what ways that I was implementing my life and business together, integration. And it actually really supported me moving forward because COVID hit and I was like, you know what, the Lord's got this, but I know what I'm doing, going back to what I can control. Yeah. And so that was a huge moment for me this year. But it was a life-changing experience that I hope that other people will realize that I'm a young person. This was a freak infection. I did nothing wrong, but it can happen. So don't count on years to change. Count on the moment that you have right now to make an impact.
Yeah, I really love that. And it reminds me of, I think it was Les Brown, and he said, you're here today and you're gone tomorrow, right? We don't have, we don't know how much time we have. And so, is waking up. I always tell people, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, that means that God, the universe, whatever you believe in, is not done with you. And there's still more blessings coming your way and for you to do something, right? And Absolutely. So let's not waste that. Let's not take that for granted, because today is a new beginning. Today we can make an impact. And if you can change 1% of yourself from yesterday, you've done a good job. If you can help somebody today, you've done a good job. You just never know, right? And so
Absolutely.
I love how you put that into perspective. And the other one is the mindset. And as a matter of fact, the next book that I'm coming out with is how you can overcome anything when you exercise the mind, because the mind, it is very powerful, right? From that perspective.
Oh, it's going to be such a good book, Cesar. I'm so excited for you.
I'm excited for it too. So it'll hopefully be ready by December.
Yay!
That's part of the game plan. So, talking about that though, when they were asking you, well, weren't you thinking about dying? It's like, no, I was thinking about the numbers coming down. And it goes back to that, what you focus upon will expand, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're focusing on these are my last days, or I'm not gonna make it, or I might be in my deathbed, now, whatever the case may be, you're kind of manifesting that, or you're kind of bringing that upon yourself. Or what is your take on that?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And I've talked about this with several people. And the biggest thing that I took away from the experience in regards to this question, Cesar, is genuinely the fact that if you contemplate something, you're giving it that power over you. You're giving it that focus. So people talk about worry. Why is worry useless, right? So if I would have worried, oh, I'm not going to see my son again. Oh, I'm not going to make it home. I'm giving it that power in my brain. And I don't believe God wants us to worry about it. I believe he wants us to trust. I believe he wants us to have faith. And if it's our time to go, it's our time to go. And I pray that you live every moment till then. But I was focusing on what I was praying for, what I was hoping for, what I was trusting would come to pass. And so when people are like, well, how do you know what's right or wrong? You feel it. You feel it, you guys. And so when I heard those numbers, the first thing in my head was that's going down. That's going down. That's not, that there's no option. I gave myself the faith by saying, I've got so much to live for. I'm not done yet. One of my favorite quotes or paraphrases of quotes is, I want to arrive at the pearly gates and be like, Lord, I have nothing left. I gave it all away. I was like, I still got too much stuff. I gotta give it away yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
So when you're coming from that giving mindset, which goes back to the kind of the beginning of our conversation, Cesar, it's the foundational mindset that you've created within yourself that shows up later on in those times of pressure, in those times of almost like test, right? I was in a test. Was I going to break? Was I going to give in? Was I going to be tempted to let go when I had so much to hold on to? And so I believe that God allowed me to be tested. And I was like, I'm not done, Lord. Give me another chance. I'm not done yet. And so I think that shift comes from you being familiar with mindset. If I hadn't been aware of how powerful mindset could be, or what I was hoping to live for, I don't think I would have had that same moment, Cesar. I don't believe I would have, because I wasn't prepared. And if we don't know when we're going to go, how do we know when to prepare? So that's why I tell you, you guys, your time is now. There is no tomorrow. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I sure hope tomorrow brings more blessings and more opportunities for you to be ready to make an impact, for you to be taking action in whatever area of your life or business that you need to be, because we don't know. And with COVID, I think so many people have been hit over the head with like, oh my gosh, this could be anybody. Mine was not COVID, but that makes it even more real, you guys. It was something out of the blue. I've never had issues with my kidneys, ever.
Yeah.
Apparently we did then. So, I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I would encourage people to focus on, is mindset is built over time. So in those times of challenge or test, it'll kind of show, were you working that muscle? You know, were you working out to be ready for those moments? Because if you don't prepare, you won't be ready.
Yeah, and a couple of things. Number one, I guess you talked about, you know, let's not focus too much on the worry, you know, or don't give worry any power, right? Let's try to trust, have faith. And so I guess I'm sure many people might be asking, well, how do you stop focusing on the worry and change that worry to maybe a positive thought, or something that is more of on a faith aspect, right? And one thing is, you know, we have about 60,000 thoughts per day. Out of those 60,000 thoughts per day, 85% of them are negative, and 90% of them are repetitive thoughts from the past. So there's a lot of negativity going on in our heads already by nature, right?
Yeah.
How do you take away the power from worry and turn that into something more positive, especially if you're going through a hard time? Could be you just lost your job, your husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever left you, like any of that stuff. How do you change that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm so glad you went back to this topic, because it is just running rampant across the world. And I believe it's disguised as fear. Worry, I believe, is another word for fear. And I believe it's the root of procrastination and so many other things. We could talk about that forever. Anyways, but the process that I work through with clients to address exactly what is going on in that moment is exactly these steps. If you have fear, you need to accept it. You need to acknowledge it. You need to analyze, what is the fear of, right? You know, is it the fear of, you know, that you had at your job? Now that COVID's here, you don't have that. Is it the fear of not having a spouse? Maybe they passed away due to COVID or whatever it is. You know, what is that fear based in? Accepting it, acknowledging it, not being ashamed, but then also taking action to change it. I'm not going to let this rule me. What am I going to use this to fuel? So I use fear to fuel my faith. And that is where the shift is made. Without fear, there can't be courage. So it's not anything to be ashamed of. Without fear, I don't believe there can be faith. So the real thing is to figure out, you know, it's kind of like taking a tool. Take it to use it to fuel everything that you're working towards, whether that's a relationship, a business, your health, your family. The same process applies. You have to identify, analyze, figure out what it is, accept it, and acknowledge it to take action by using it. Use that sucker to fuel everything that you're trying to create. So use your fear as fuel for your faith.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And I can definitely see that. And I think it was Les Brown that talked about something very similar to said, you know, once you acknowledge and accept the fear, whatever that might be going, or whatever might be going incorrectly, then now you're kind of giving away that, you let that power be taken away from you, right? Because you're saying, hey, I understand what's the fear. I understand what might be the consequences, whatever that might be. And because of that, I'm more aware now. And therefore, I'm not giving my power away.
I love that you dropped the value there, Cesar, about awareness. Awareness is so key, especially in our current circumstances, because there's so many different things going on. If we allow it just to get covered up, we don't actually know what is causing us to be unsettled or not at peace, whether it's, within or without. And I think that that's just a huge moment for people to realize that the power comes from their self-awareness. So I love that you dropped that today. That was huge.
No, that's awesome. Now, talk about the mindset. I want to go back to that because I think that's so critical. I tell people that the most important thing that we have that really doesn't cost any money is that one thing we have between the 2 ears, right? And that's the mind. Yet I don't think people, as you mentioned, you were talking about it takes practice, prepare yourself. I guess, how would you, if you've never exercised the mind, what would be your suggestion in terms of how you can start preparing yourself mentally for the next big hit that you might have?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I like to parallel mindset to working out at a gym, right? If I could work out once and be fit for the rest of my life, you better darn know I'd do it. But unfortunately, that's not how life works, right?
Right.
I'd have to go to the gym more than once. Okay, so your mind works the same way. So let's say you've had a great day at the office, Cesar, and you've had an amazing time. You're like, I was aware, I knew everything was going, I knew what my priorities were. I got this. It's not going to stay that way. But here's what you can do to help create that sense of awareness in your life and business. And it actually starts by one simple factor: slowing down. And here's what I mean by that. If you take a step back before you answer someone's question, you'll be able to be like, am I going to be positive? Am I going to be negative? Am I providing value? Am I providing something that's not supportive? How do I want to appear in this space? However this relates to your life or business or anything, taking a step back, slowing down, will allow you to be like, hey, is this supporting who I want to become? Right? Some people call it discipline. Discipline, I think, is considered a naughty word anymore based on people's, association with the word itself. Discipline is freedom, in my opinion, because by knowing who you are, what you want to be, you'll be able to create that awareness that allows you to kind of direct your steps to be like, is this where I want? Nope, I got to go this way in order to achieve that. Nope, that's not how I want to go. So I think in order to create that mindset fitness, if you will, it also starts by, so this is the second step. So if we're going to be disciplined, who are you trying to become? Who are you trying to demonstrate your gifts and talents to? Who are you trying to serve? And so knowing a little bit deeper that self-awareness, right, on what your mission is, what your gifts and talents are, how you want to use them to impact the world, that will give you even a clearer direction to identify and be like, hey, is this going to help me get where I'm trying to go? Nope. Okay, well, then I'll just be quiet. And then you don't say anything or you don't do anything. And it allows you to take each step intentionally so that you are creating that mental ability to be like, you know what, I'm really frustrated in this space, but is this going to help the fact? No. Maybe just be quiet. Or say, you know what, I'm really fired up about this and someone needs to say something about X, Y, or Z. And you step up as a leader in that position. Fantastic. But you asked yourself the questions first. And in this fast world, Cesar, I don't know about you, but Facebook is easy. Messenger is easy. Social media, period. It is so, it's so sad for me to see people go off on a tangent when they should have asked themselves, is this serving? Is this honoring? Is this helping me? Is this, because we've all had moments where we need to vent. Hey, hallelujah, totally here.
Yep.
And we've had moments of fear where maybe we've turned to social media or whatever the case may be. We've all been there. So I'm not preaching from the saintly pulpit, okay? I'm telling you that the difference can be made in your mind if you slow yourself down first and ask yourself, is this helpful? Is this serving? Is this what I want to leave as a legacy in the world? If it's not, then don't do it. If it is, hop to it. Do it. Absolutely. All power to you. Own it. But make that distinction first, not afterwards.
Yeah.
Because then you might be like, oh man, why did I do that? And, things can go crazy on social media. It doesn't take much. And, but with that, with that knowledge as well, things can go crazy. If you're focusing on doing good, if you're focusing on being better, that has that same power. That same power and intention could be used as that force that you're trying to become. but you have that power. It starts with you. Nobody else can take that from you. So remember that the power is already within you. You decide how to wield it.
Yeah. That reminds me of two quotes. One is from the African proverb, and I'm probably going to butcher it up a little bit. It talks about when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm, right?
Yes.
And so we go back to that. Focusing on that mind, the mentality, the way you approach things in your head. Really, you're your biggest enemy, yet you're also your biggest supporter too, right?
Absolutely.
The other one is from Dean Graziosi, and he says a success mentality teaches not to waste energy on things that you cannot change. Right.
Yes.
So that's another one that, again, when you start practicing and you start looking at it, as you said, you can waste a lot of time on social media. You can waste a lot of time. I sometimes find myself, doing that. I'm going through posts and I'm like, wait, how long has it been? And it's like 30, 45 minutes. And I'm like,
yes.
Wow, right? So it happens to all of us, right?
Absolutely.
Yet you got to be able to know how to step out of that though and say, you know what? No, this is not serving me. Yep. And so I got to be able to change that. Now, in terms of all of that, what are some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you in a positive mindset, to just keep you pumped up?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I have been blessed with the gift of energy, and people have asked me many times, where does that come from? And I'll be honest, it comes by honoring myself first. I believe that we're all called to love our neighbor as ourselves, but if you don't love yourself, how do you love somebody else? As a wife and mom, sometimes it's hard because in the modern society, women don't seem to win. If you work, you're a bad mom. If you stay at home, you're a bad mom. And it's all one of these things. But the number one thing that I bring back to women, men, stay-at-home parents, everything with COVID that has changed your life and business, if you're not honoring yourself first, you cannot support, bless, and help others because you didn't help yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. No matter how hard you try, you can't. So for me, what does that look like? I believe that that's the next part to this question. What does that look like for me? I really invest in my prayer life, in my own reading, which is another investment in yourself. Some people invest money, others invest time. I believe it all counts. I do have coaches on the side, but for those of you, regardless of where you're at, these are things that you can apply. So prayer, reading, I invest in quiet time, physical activity. It's important to make sure that your mind, body, soul, and spirit are all in harmony, because that's when things really change. So people ask, how do you honor your priorities first? You make them happen first in the day, in my opinion. And I have seen that transform people's lives, because when everything's good within to start, then you can go out and support other people. But if you've only got two pieces of the puzzle, you can't really help do all this because you're still looking for two pieces. Nobody else has them but you. And so I think self-care is another term for people that this kind of relates to. So I would ask people, what does self-care mean to you? What fills your cup? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you someone that needs to have an accountability coach, an accountability partner? What does that look like in your life or business? Do you need your spouse next to you to do this? I don't have the luxury of my spouse being home to do this with, so I have to have the discipline to do it myself. Yeah. But that's also helped me realize the value, because without it, it's just not the same. My days are not the same. The peace, the inner peace, is the most priceless thing you can invest in. So whatever it costs for you to make that happen, an extra hour of sleep, 2 hours of sleep, I don't know. But whatever it costs, make your priorities what they say they are, a priority. Make them happen without compromise. Yeah. And that's the number one thing that changed for me. So identify what that could be for you. I kind of shared a couple that worked for me. But then identify how you'll implement it. We can talk all day about what we're going to do, right? But how are you actually doing it, guys? Right. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to know. Yeah. Because that's when life changes, when you actually do what the heck you said you were going to do. So do it. Yeah. And that's been part of my mentality for a long time. That's kind of how I was as a high school girl. I loved Nike's "Just Do It" slogan. That was very much a part of me, because that's when the decision's made, that's when the power is played. Yeah. And we have that power. It's a prison in our brain. Or it's our power. That's Trent Shelton. That's so true. That's so true. So remember, your inner peace is the most priceless thing that you can invest in. How are you going to create that? By honoring your priorities first.
Yeah. And with that too is just looking at it from the things that you can do, like the prayer, reading, quiet time. One of the things that I would suggest too is if you do that within the first 15-20 minutes from the time that you wake up and then at the end of the day, 15-20 minutes after before you go to sleep, because the mind is most responsive during that period of time, which means don't pick up your freaking phone, don't check any social media. None of that. I used to do that. Don't do that now. I don't do that anymore.
So powerful.
Right. And so that's the time that your mind is more responsive to anything you're asking, whether it's a prayer, whether you're reading, you're feeding your mind. Talk about feeding the mind. Don't freaking sit down and watch TV. Well, again, those are just some suggestions too, right?
Guard that time. That's my time. That's my time.
So you gotta be able to do that, right? Now you talk about priority, right? I want to know your take on priority versus or priority management versus time management, because I always hear that, especially in corporate. What is your take on that?
That's a huge topic in corporate. So I love that you brought that up, but I think it's becoming more apparent to entrepreneurs because people are working from home now. So corporate and entrepreneurs, we all kind of feel like we're cousins in the same family. So I would love to dig into that. So priorities for me, I believe, are determined based on your professional and personal. I believe they're two separate things. And I believe that they both have their own level of importance, and that's fantastic. But I believe that they need to be honored as such. If your professional stuff is, ranked in a 1, 2, 3 spectrum, then make sure when you clock in, whether you're, working as an entrepreneur or as a corporate individual, that you attack those top priorities first. And you make sure that they are being implemented first based on what your time is needed for. And so when people talk about time management, I have a couple of trainings and things on that, but the basics that I implement is a lot of block scheduling so that our brain can get into a space and be like, hey, I'm going, I'm doing, I'm gone, but also implementing breaks because our brains aren't meant to run 24/7. You get a refresh, a reboot, and you're actually going to be so much more productive. People think slowing down slows them down. Sometimes slowing down speeds you up. And so realizing that maybe some of those shifts and changes, especially if you're new to working from home, give yourself a 5-minute break to get some water. You see me drinking out of a jug if you're on video. Water is a huge part of it, but it also creates a break. I have to go fill this, and I fill it downstairs. So I have to go down the stairs, move my legs, move my blood. I actually have circulation issues. So I have to get up and move my body, especially because of things that I have, right?
Yeah.
So for anybody that's in those spaces, create the time frames and blocks or management for your time and projects based on what works for you. Are you a night owl? Do you work best at night? There's nothing wrong with that, but make sure that your professional and personal needs are honored by priority first and work with you. You don't have to work against the grain. Life is not working against you. That's not the way it is. That's how we perceive it, right? It's all in our perception. So I would say to create that balance, I would identify what are your personal priorities, what are your professional priorities, and how can you create the schedule that optimizes your capacity in both areas.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I want to talk about your book, Less.
Yes.
So tell me about this project. I happen to know a few of the people there, so I haven't gotten a copy yet. I'm working on getting that, but I'm so happy for you guys. So tell me about that book and what is it all about, and just give us, how did that come about, like for you to start writing
absolutely.
a book?
So funny story. I am not a writer, you guys. Writing, you can ask my mom. In high school, in grade school, all that, it was the hardest thing for me to do was write my reading assignments, my English assignments, anything. I was homeschooled, so this was very core to my mother, who is definitely an amazing cheerleader, but she couldn't do it for me, right? We had to do it ourselves. And so I was very much the person that would be writing and laboring over my paper and scrap the whole thing and do a whole new one the night before it was due, just because that's how my brain worked. It was so weird. So the book was no different, unfortunately. So for my co-authors, Trey Carmichael was the one that really headed this up with the Limitless brand. So shout out to Trey.
Yeah.
I did submit it right on the deadline. So like, yep, I was one of those, but it wasn't because I wasn't trying.
Right.
I have definitely been, so we wanted to create a book, and we had talked about it for a little bit. We wanted to bring together different aspects of business because we all have different gifts and talents in the business industry, right? And so mine was in the coaching and mindset. Trey has SOPs, SEO, like all this. So anyways, we got a lot of different amazing people that had different gifts that are all a part of business. And we're like, how can we help people with COVID? Entrepreneurs, business owners, corporate, how can we help people bring all of the pieces together and create something that helps them move forward and pivot in the ways that their business needs? Because maybe someone needs marketing, maybe somebody needs something else. We were like, how can we give it all? How can we give it all? And so it was by bringing together some of the best people that we had in each industry and creating a book that is available now on Amazon, and we're shooting for bestseller. We're up there. We're going at it. Super exciting. But we wanted to bring it all and leave it on the table in an affordable way that was like, hey, you don't have an excuse because you don't have the help, the support. We want you to work less. That's why we called it Limitless Expansion Secrets, because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to honor our priorities. We're all trying to work less, but yet impact more, change more lives, and actually, have a, financial stability with that too. Because now COVID has proven even corporate isn't stable.
Right. Yeah.
For people that have thought that for years in the, industry, we have proof. And so it's one of those things where we're like, how can we best help the world with what we have? And it was by coming together in a collaboration and sharing it in the form of a book, which we are super excited for and grateful for the opportunity. But it was a whole new experience that we're so excited to be on that journey with too. So no, we're super excited.
That's amazing. So what are some, we'll probably talk about it already, but are there any maybe golden nuggets that you drop on the book that you want to share with us?
Ooh, there were a couple. So I did share a couple previously, but the one that I haven't shared with you yet is actually my 3D effect.
Okay.
And that's basically how I determine what is serving me in life and business and what's not. And, as a business owner, it's super important to, keep aware of your needle movers, your KPIs, all that kind of great stuff, right? So what I like to break it down to is 3 simple sections. And I usually do it pen and paper because I'm old school, kind of that brain to hand thing that the scientists talk about. I don't know all the proper definitions, but it's all there. So anyways, my 3D effect is the do, delegate, and ditch. What are you doing? What are you delegating? And what are you going to ditch? And I say this in the current tense because I want to know what you're going to do, what you're going to delegate, and what you're going to let go of. And I think the hardest thing for entrepreneurs right now, people, business owners, is letting go, ditching. We get so attached to, oh, but everybody else is on Instagram. I got to do Instagram. If your following's on Facebook, let go of Instagram. You don't have to, you have the power as the business owner to make these decisions. And if you're in a space where you have limited time to honor your priorities, to honor certain things, then making sure that what you're doing counts is what's really, really important. And so going through what I do, that can be as a wife, as a mother, as a, business owner, all areas of the spectrum, guys. What are you doing that is supporting you becoming that best version of yourself in your life or in your business, right? What are you going to delegate? What is actually something that you could hire someone to do better than yourself? I'm not a writer, so down the road, I'm probably going to get a copywriter. I'm probably going to get somebody else to do that great stuff. Take what I can tell them, and then they'll make it pretty and grammatically pleasing and all that kind of great stuff, because that is not my forte. I can do it for other people, but I can't do it for myself, which is just the weirdest thing. But that's raw and real, keeping it real with you guys. So what can I delegate? That's going to be something that I can't wait to do. So that'll be a great move for me. Somebody else, it might be social media management. They get stuck on social media. Well, pass it on. Have somebody else do that is, a king or queen in that space. That's great. And you'll see yourself freeing up and I think it was Nathan Hirsch, good friend of mine as well. He said, if you're focusing on what you can achieve, focus on claiming 5 hours back of your week. 1 hour, Monday through Friday. What would 1 extra hour do for you? Whether that's in the delegation space, in the optimization space, all those things. Set yourself free because time is priceless. And so figuring out what you can do, what you can delegate, and what you can let go of, what you can ditch, that's going to be a huge, not only boost in your business, but also a freedom in the discipline that you're putting yourself through this growth phase, right? You're going to challenge yourself. You're going to be raw and real. I only want honest answers, y'all, because that's the only way it's going to change. Yeah. And so if you're really committed to it, you'll make that decision, figure out what you do, what you delegate, what you ditch, and you'll be on. But I do that regularly, right? I don't do that once and forget about it. I do that, sometimes I do it once a month. Sometimes I do it every quarter. It depends on what I'm tracking, too. Is that my, post reach? Is that my optimization on the website? Like, depending on what it is, you may need to do it more often or less. But remembering that it's a practice that you can do simply. It's got 3 steps. It does not have to be overwhelming, but the change and the decision is where the transformation takes place. Because if you say you're going to let go of something, you actually have to let it go.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's a free Facebook group. I see so many people letting go of free Facebook groups right now because they're like, you know what? There's just too many. It's oversaturated. I can't support people in that way. That's great. But that means actually closing the group, archiving it. Like, did you do that thing? So I challenge you, if you say you're going to let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
And even if you cannot delegate all of it or let everything go, I mean, start somewhere. Like, just don't do anything.
Yes.
I think a lot of people get hung up on doing all 3 things, right? I'm doing everything. And then you're really not doing anything because you're getting right. And so even if you cannot delegate or ditch most of the things, just let something go. And I like the fact that, right. And I like the fact that you go back, every so often to review it. It's not one of those things where you just do it once and forget it. You got to go back. And I think it was my mentor, Marshall Silver. He says, review, revise, and rehearse, or something of that nature, right? So you go back, you're always going to go back and always looking at that. So no, that's awesome. Justine, I know I value your time. So I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go. Number one, I actually wanted to see if you can elaborate more on this. I love your point on this. And you said you have all of that you need to succeed. You decide if you will. Don't wait. Your time is now. We don't decide how long we have. We decide what we do with the time that is given to us. And I think that's super powerful. And I know we've been talking about that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to, talk about that, or anything else you want to say regarding that point.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think the number one thing that I want to add to it, Cesar, now that we bring it up again, is, so many people watch superhero movies, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You're the superhero in your own movie. There's not going to be someone Superman isn't going to fly in and save you. Black Widow's not coming from the other side. I'm sorry, Spider-Man isn't here.
Yeah.
You are the answer. God gave you a purpose, and you're the only one that can do it out of the 7 billion people in the world. The fact that your heart's beating, you're listening to this, like Cesar said, he knows what I'm talking about. You're the answer. And because God is on your side, there is nothing in your way. You decide if you do it. And I think that that's what people are waiting for, even right now, COVID and all the things that are coming against us. The perspective that we're looking through, or many are looking through, is that someone else is going to come in and save the day. The elections are going to change everything. They're going to find a vaccine. Well, you know what? We don't have time to wait for that, because remember, we don't know how much time we have.
Right.
So you decide what you're going to do today, now, right now. And you were given everything to do it. The fact is, you decide if you will or if you won't. And I pray that you are inspired. I pray that you take action, but know that you are here with that purpose. The heartbeat beneath your palm, if you put your hand on your heart right now, that's purpose. That's drive. That's someone needing you somewhere. And I think the moment that really changed for me in my life was being a small town girl, all that kind of stuff. I was like, somebody somewhere needs me to show up someday. Maybe they're going to see this 5 years from now. Maybe they'll listen to this show 5 years from now. But because I showed up and gave my best and was my 100% self, I actually could change their life.
Yeah.
And that's the same for all of you. That's
Amen.
not just me. I'm no one special that way. That's you too.
Yeah.
We're all that way. And so I think that that's probably the biggest thing. You're that superhero. You could be that, Superman for someone else based on what you shared or what you gave to them. Whether that was faith or inspiration, you never know what you could do. You never know.
Yeah. Amen. I love that. I love that. And the last thing I have for you, so you offer personal coaching, and then you also have several opportunities through connecting through your agency. Tell me more about that, or how does that work with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you are interested in mindset, accountability coaching, or one-on-one, further forward, then definitely reach out to me personally. And I do have some of that connection info with Cesar here too.
Yep.
But if you're interested in full agency services, I am COO for Virtually Limitless with Trey Carmichael, who is also the leading author in the Limitless Expansion Secrets. We are coming out with more offers and things like that. So if you're interested in that as well, contact me and I will get you definitely hooked up for basically full service agency support. And we're really excited to be offering that with the collaboration of my coaching as well. So
awesome. I love
we're going for all levels, Cesar. We're going with you.
Man, I love that. I love that. So if people wanted to find you, connect with you, where can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. I am on most of the social media platforms at Justine Mader HQ. And so that's my business page on Facebook, my Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So definitely check me out there. I'd love to meet you and support you listening to Cesar's show because it's amazing.
Yes.
But then I also have a website, which is justinemader.com. And I would
Awesome.
love to have you visit there and connect with me there as well.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Anything else before I let you go that you want to share?
I don't know. Cesar's awesome. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I think that we had just an amazing heart-to-heart show here. And I love that Cesar brings that to the table every time. And it just really encourages all of us, not just myself, but, life is full of obstacles. We all have them. We all have them. So don't be stuck. Don't be fearful. Have faith and drive on. We're all doing it. And when we do it together, that's when we're really powerful.
I love that. I love that. Justine, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate our conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Cesar. It was a pleasure. I'm so excited to be connecting with your listeners. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you check her out. Go to her webpage. Go to her Facebook. Please come here, comment on this podcast, leave us the reviews, and share this because somebody out there needs to listen to this message. And I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.